to the cloud. There we go. Okay, well, let's quick run through what we're doing in this week's class using the PowerPoint. And oops, share screen. And then we'll move on. Any questions right offhand? Any feedback from week one?
So I do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
There were comments put in the week one document. Are you expecting us to correct what the suggestions you made and apply them to the document and resubmit it?
Nope.
Or, nope. Okay.
No, I just thought that those would be useful. When I look at documents, I kind of look at them as if I'm the PMO. And so I'm really saying, you know, if we were using these documents in an organization, we might be fussier about only the appropriate information going in each box. So that's kind of why I do that feedback. But nope, it's a learning thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anything else? Okay, so this week we have a discussion again. We have a team project and we have a quiz. And you should probably start working on your IQT presentation. Some of you are presenting week 3. And what that means is that a week from this evening, so on Monday evening, the 11th or 12th or whatever that 5 + 7, the 12th, you should be posting your presentation to a thread. And I did notice a couple things about the IQT presentations, basically about the voice threads. When I looked, I noticed not everybody found the class and went through correctly to the class voice thread. And it's easier for people if it is on that voice thread and in that area. And then the second part was that I noticed that there were people who did not modify the settings to automatically forward the slides. And it just makes a more professional presentation if you modify that setting. And let me know if you don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I have a question about that actually. I did try a couple of times. And so when I played it as a PowerPoint, it progressed like it normally would. There were no pauses. You didn't have to push next slide. And then when you got to the voice thread, it did pause and you would have to push next slide. So I went to the setting and I believe it was automatically progress every 4 seconds. Is there a way to get it to just progress when it's ready for the next slide, when that recording piece is done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So did you record the voice in the voice thread or in the PowerPoint?
I did it in the PowerPoint. Should I have done it otherwise?
Well, I think that if you do it in the PowerPoint, it does it. If I were going to do that, I would probably then save the PowerPoint played as an MP4, just as a video. And then I would upload that video to VoiceThread because VoiceThread doesn't understand when you're moving forward in slides the other way.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Reading and quiz. What do you think of the book so far?
Gives a lot of history. It explains the why behind things. So that's good. Good foundation.
Okay. It's probably the least hands-on, the most theoretical of any week of reading. So we'll be moving on from that. Okay. If anybody did not complete the quiz from last week, let me know and I'll reopen it so that you can continue to work on it. I'm just not fussy about due dates. Your lives are too complicated for us to worry about days here or there. So do what you can when you can, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so our discussion this week is actually a practice. And this course is set up so that we use the forums as practice for the more strenuous assignments. So for example, last week's forum was applying a quality tool or technique. And so you applied one, so you kind of understood now how to do that when you're like in your team projects where you need to be applying tools, showing that you're applying tools. And then once again in your IQT responses and in your IQT presentations, you're applying tool. So here, this week, we're going to focus in on reviewing an IQT presentation. And so there is a rubric for that, and you can review people's IQT presentations and apply a quality tool or technique. And then you're also welcome to, when you comment on peers, reply back to them about how they applied the tool or technique. And there are at least three up there. There might be a fourth one still there. IQT presentations from previous groups who have agreed to let theirs be used. And so that's what we're doing here. Week 3, 4, 5, or 6, everybody except maybe there's one person who hasn't selected an IQT tool or technique yet. And so I'll check through with that person and see if we can get them scheduled. And you'll be doing your presentation using what you learned about what a good presentation looks like from this week's discussion board. And then you will only be recording those once. You will record it for your peers to learn about your individual quality tool during that week. And then when you get to week 6 or at any time before week 6, when you've completed, just revise and submit your IQT slides to the week 6 IQT assignment. But revising it just means, for example, if you didn't use any in-text citing, you'll probably get some comments from either me or your peers saying you need to in-text cite, even though it's a slide and not a paper. So that's what you would add to your IQT slides. Questions?
I have a question on the
Go ahead.
rubric.
Yep.
So under professionalism, item 18, it talks about presentation is 5 to 10 minutes with a 5 to 10 minute example question answer period.
Yeah, you don't need to do the 5 to 10 minute question answer period. Okay. The reason that we keep it there is because we also teach this class in a face-to-face environment. And that's why it's there. Because we expect the people in class to lead a discussion before they sit down. Okay, week 2 discussion is that practice run. So this week, it's a 10 point forum because that's what our weekly forums are. But then when you go into the IQT discussions in week 3, 4, 5, and 6, it's a total of 15 points per week. times 4 discussions for a total of 60 points. And then your IQT slides submitted in week 6 are 20 points. And this is where we were last time that I looked at it. Oh, missing Carolyn. And then Sandra dropped the class. So we're just missing Carolyn. So I will track her down and assign something. And Carolyn will probably need to do hers in week 4. So let's say that in week 4, we only have 1 presenter, but we had 4 presenters in week 3. When you do your application posts on week 4, please feel free to use one of the slides, one of the tools that you did not use from week 3. So for example, if you get to week 4 and you did cost benefit analysis, but you didn't do histograms and Pareto charts, you might want to use that in week 4. And you could wait, and if you haven't given feedback to Christian, for example, you could do that during week 4. And we do it rather than sending Christian to week 4 because a lot of people had preferences about doing things in week 3 because they had conflicts week 4. But if you want to change your week, let me know. Okay, that's it for IPT. Do you want to talk a little bit about the team project? So in the team project, we start with chapter 1 and 2, the project environment and needs analysis and the project charter. And that's what you worked on this particular week. But next week, in week 2, we're really going to talk more about stakeholders and what their expectations are. And then because in the define stakeholders and plan stakeholder engagement, we really expect you to figure out what it is that is going to make those stakeholders happy. It isn't something we wait and see halfway through the project. We do it right away when we get stakeholders. And so defining those this week in your team project is important. Next week, you'll take those expectations and flip them into a traceability matrix, a work breakdown structure, work package, and a work breakdown structure dictionary entry, just one. And then you will build on those same requirements for week 4 to actually create the metrics that you're going to use to define quality on your project. In week 5, you'll be writing operational definitions. And the way that we practice operational definitions is that we write them in week 3. We have an M&M project forum, and that's where we talk about operational definitions. And then in week 6, you'll be looking at quality control, which is really looking at measurements. So if you decided that you were going to put together some graphs on week 6, you'd be looking at those results graphed out and requirement sign off. And then finally in week 7, you're just closing the project. And week 8, you're doing an executive summary, each one of you for your part of the project. So how is everybody's part of the project different? That's what gets kind of crazy. We're asking you to take one process improvement initiative per team member, and within your team, not to have 2 people doing the same process improvement initiative. And the items that are in red are the ones that you can choose from. And those are in your team project scenario. And as part of your team project this week, you'll each be choosing one of those. And then you'll be looking at the stakeholders and saying, what, in terms of that process improvement initiative, which stakeholders really have some skin in the game, and which of those stakeholders, what specific expectations might those stakeholders have? So this just, and then you've got a little stakeholder engagement plan that you'll be doing focused on your particular process improvement initiative. So one of the things that we do not do here is we do not get together and just brainstorm a big list of stakeholders, because too often in our classes, we've done that and then we've stopped there. And that's not the important part of stakeholder identification. Really at work, what I found is the most important part is figuring out what they want, not who they are. And then as a team, you'll be just identifying and analyzing stakeholders. And what you're doing actually is tailoring one of the PMI processes, the stakeholder identification process, to how should it be done for this particular project. So tips for success: don't have a ton of stakeholders, 3 to 5 is plenty. And that's very typical in this class. I'm not anxious to see you do busy work. I'm anxious to see you demonstrate what you just learned or what you know now. And that usually fewer examples are just fine. And briefly specify the key deliverables, and just a few things. Don't bother to make up participant names but do use the titles. And that's for each team member. And that's it for this week. Questions?
I don't have any.
Okay. I hope you all have a happy 4th of July. Let me know if you're having any concerns or questions about your IQT presentation, and I will see you online next week.
That sounds great. Thanks, Dr. K.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.